There she is, the old power rack. Alright, so we got some parts in from Rock Auto. Here's one of the boots for the rack that we're getting ready to build for the school car, along with a tie and a metal tie that I'm not going to use. I'm going to use the factory equipment to reinstall the boot, but get that. This feels like it's light, so I don't think it's my brake pads for the Lexus. This is probably going to be the other boot in a really big box. Cool. We've got brand new boots. We got more parts for the rack rebuild. The boots, which I've already showed you, we're gonna go ahead and use these used inner tie rods. Now, I don't recommend you use reused tie rods, but I'm using them because I know how little use these actually got. This rack was basically built and not used. So I'm going to use these, but again, I don't recommend reusing tie rods. Speaking of tie rods, before we put those on, I've got a little package here from Techno Toy Tuning. These spacers in there, I'll show you here in just a second. It's basically a slip-on like washer style here, and then the threaded one, which kind of replaces an inner tie rod. I'll show you those in a second. Then we also got some outer tie rods from Megan Racing. Thank you, Battle Garage. They're the ones that hook me up with the Techno Toy Tuning, the spacers, and also the Megan tie rods. Got a Megan sticker and warranty information. Real nice, pretty beefy unit, easily adjustable. Comes with a spacer on there for get the geometry right. So it's a nice little unit. Went ahead with new steering grease. This is moly based. That's the most important thing when you're doing it for this particular rack. Probably most all racks, you're gonna need a poly based grease because it's safe for the rubber seals and everything in the rack. And even though it's not a power rack, it's a manual rack, there are still rubber seals to keep grease and everything where they're supposed to be, as well as the boots and all that. So make sure you use a moly based grease. I like Valvoline, so I'm pretty loyalist to them. I mean, I'll use whatever, but I prefer Valvoline. I put Valvoline oil in all my cars and everything. I really only needed one of these. I bought two because I have 2 racks to do, and they sent me 4. But this is an actual Toyota part, OEM. I'll give you the part number, and I'll give you a picture too later. It's 45522-17020. Alright, next is we're going to take these outer tie rods off first so we can get the boots off, and then we're going to take the inner tie rods off. So it is a 12 millimeter for the section of the inner tie rod, and for the outer tie rod it is a 19. So 19 and a 12. And basically we want to crack this nut loose, and then we can unscrew the tie rod. Now that we got our tie rods loose, go ahead and just take them off. And then we can throw these in the garbage. Make sure you save these pins. Alright, so we're going to replace this bushing here. In order to do that, we got to push this inner shaft down and out. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and clock the rack. There we go. You can just hear that click. That was it actually just dropping out of the bushing. So now it's loose in there. And the next step is we will depress the 3 dimples. There's one here, there's one here, and one here. And that's what helps keep the bushing locked into the outer tube here of the rack. So we go ahead and push those in, break it out, remove it. And then we will pack as much fresh grease as we can in there, as well as greasing up as much as we can here. And then we will rack it all the way to the other side and then replace grease on the other side. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this screwdriver. And you're just looking to get it depressed there enough. I don't really have a good small flathead, so I'm just gonna get a smaller Phillips. But just kind of use the hole to pry the bushing out. Once you pop it far enough out, you can just pull it out. There we go. Boom. Like that. And we'll go ahead and replace it with the new bushing there. Alright, and the reason for replacing this bushing is if we look inside, gone ahead and cleaned it up, you can kind of see the ridges a little better in this one since it's dirty. Or if we go like that, you can definitely see the ridges. Now, the shaft is supposed to ride on these surfaces here. It's a curved surface, and then these are kind of like two ridges, and then a curved surface and two ridges. And over time, from going in and out, yeah, it'll wear it down, and basically the inner diameter here increases over time. So by pushing another one on here, you can't really see too much by eye, but this is actually tighter, and it will squeeze the inner shaft tighter and keep it from wobbling around, which will eliminate a lot of steering slop in the car. And I don't have gloves, so we're just gonna do it old school. Should just pop in like that. Now we've got new bushing. Just go ahead and get a little bit more grease just all up in the bushing there. We're also going to take a chance over here. Now, the best way is to sit it on end, so the weight's on the actual shaft, and then let gravity kind of take it, and then as long as you turn in the correct direction, it'll start retracting in. You just want to make sure that you get it guided through your bushing, and you don't tear up your bushing. So just be really careful. It should guide itself in, but just be really careful. There we go. And as you'll see, just gotta make sure it gets. There we go. So just be real patient with it. It'll slide in. So now that we've got it through, we can go ahead and clock this all the way to this direction here. And then we're going to go ahead and re-lubricate as much as we can there. And we'll run it back and forth a few times and continue to put fresh grease on the inside as we're all the way out. So no teeth exposed on this side. So let's go ahead and put all that in there. And then again, we'll run it back. And then I'm gonna apply a dab of grease here again. All right, so the next step is to install our spacers that we got from T3. So again, earlier I said that there is a small spacer that's just a slip-on. It just slips on and your tie rod comes through it, like so. And that will space your tie rod on one end, and then you have a bigger spacer for the other end. Now, the one thing about this is they don't specify which side you want to put it on. It just says you've got a thread-on piece for one side and a slip-on for the other side. That's their wordage. So you might not be aware, but I'm going to point out a little detail to you. Oh. Now, keep in mind where the gear is here, okay, on the rack. So let's flip this over so we can get a better understanding. You can see the teeth here. Now, we don't want to have a big spacer here to make up room because we only have a small space here for the shaft to come in before we run out of teeth. So it won't go anyway. So you actually want to make sure you put the smaller slip-on spacer on the driver's side. Okay, so that needs to stay on the driver's side because you're only going to have about a tooth or two before you run out of teeth, and then it makes this obsolete. So make sure that you put the smaller one on the driver's side, closest to the I guess gearbox or gear in the rack. And then since this end is so far away from the gears and the teeth cut out at a certain point anyway, well before this end, you can slip this in, and because the tie rod is no longer making contact with the outer tube because it's spaced out by this, you can slide in further and you can get an extra 2 teeth on this end of the rack. And then we're talking about recentering it. But that's how you get a little bit more functionality out of this rack, is usually there's a tooth on either side that's not being used, and we're freeing up those teeth. But I just thought I would point that out because their website does not specify. I got these through Battle Garage because I was getting some other components as well. I didn't get them directly through T3, but I did double check before recording this. T3's verbiage says you've got a threaded spacer for one side and a slip-on for the other side. And Battle Garage takes their exact wordage and copied and pasted on their website. I mean, obviously it's a description on the part that they're selling. So no hate towards those guys, but hopefully T3 maybe will maybe change their verbiage or clarify. But from my interpretation of these, I would definitely make sure that you keep the longer spacer on the passenger side that's well away from the gear, and then use the small slip-on side on the driver's side, which is going to be closest to the gear. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with the passenger side spacer. And it'll screw into the rack like so. And then you should be able to take a couple wrenches and tighten them down. Alright, so I'm not 100% sure. 19 is too small and 22 is slightly a little too big. So it's probably a 21 on the rack, I'm assuming. Maybe, I don't know. It's 22 is definitely a lot closer for the Techno Toy tuning. I have a hard time believing that's actually metric. That's probably a standard size, would be my guess, like a 7/8 or something. I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to go ahead and use 2 adjustables to go ahead and tighten this down to the rack. So go ahead and grab it from this side, that way we can turn it. Now you don't want to bend that, obviously, so you don't want to put any force on the rest of the rack. You only want to put force right here so that you're not bowing the whole rack. But we got that on there. The tie rods will basically go on the same way. So now the tie rod will come on here, and then on the other side we will just do the tie rod with the slip-on spacer. Alright, and now we get to actually see the functionality of a spacer in real time. So normally it would bottom out here, and that's it. That's as far as you could turn. Now we're allowed all that extra movement. Right, so we come around to the other side now. We do pretty much the same thing. We're just gonna slide our spacer on here and get it threaded in. And now, again, we can see on the other side here, where yes, it's not as big as the other side, but again, this is where our rack would stop normally. And now we've got that extra little bit of turn there. So combined, we've got quite a bit extra steering rack, and when we even it out, each side will have a good increase in steering angle. All right, I hope you like getting greasy, because we got more grease stuff to do. Again, I would normally wear gloves. I don't have any. I'm ill prepared for this, but we're gonna send it. All right, we're gonna pack this out with grease here. All in here. Tons of grease. Tons of grease. And same with this side. Tons of grease. There. We'll also get more in the actual tie rod down here. Then I also like putting some grease in the actual boot itself. Not a lot, but just some. And I mean, I could be doing this wrong, and if any master techs want to sit there and yell at me, that's fine. This is how I'm doing it. It's okay. We'll just do that. There we go. Getting where we want. And now once you get the boot on, if you compress it all the way, just let the rack do the work for you. See, it'll push over. This band's gonna make it a little more tough, but as you can see, it's kind of pushing over, and then if you kind of twist it a little bit, it's greased up. It should eventually get open over this there we go. Got the clamp in the way. So there we go. Because the clamp, it makes it tougher, but just gently spinning it. There we go. All right, and it's on. And yeah, I know guys are probably faster than that and are probably laughing at me right now, but that's okay. We're getting through it. This is the top of the car, and this is the driver's side. So basically the passenger area is here and the engine's here. So I kind of know the layout of the rack and pinion and whatnot. So I'm just gonna leave them like this. I cleaned up the original Toyota hardware. Fit like that. And on to the other side. just like we did the other side, we'll go ahead and rack it right then. That'll help. It'll just naturally kind of push the rest of the boot. You have to close it all the way, just get it really nice and tight, and it will come free. And then just like the other side, time to put on the OEM hardware. Go ahead and put that clamp on. All right, and that is how I'm rebuilding this rack, MR2 rack used for an AE86. The next time we see this, it'll be getting installed in the school car. As you can see, I've spent a lot of time cleaning it up, cleaning up the brackets and the hardware. We're gonna go with the adapter bushings from Xcessive manufacturing. We're gonna go with the outer tie rods from Megan, and we already used the spacers from Techno Toy Tuning. Appreciate good manufacturers doing good things. So till next time, guys, peace.